Listen up. If you're over 25 and finding yourself avoiding people, dodging invites, and pulling away from social circles, you are not alone. And more importantly, you're not crazy for doing it. In fact, I'm going to tell you why this shift is not only normal, but necessary. Listen, if you're a woman over 25 and you've started avoiding people, pulling back from certain relationships, and choosing solitude more often, you are not alone. And no, you're not being rude, difficult, or antisocial. What's happening is that your priorities are shifting, and that shift is one of the most powerful things you'll ever experience. It's the moment you start realizing that you no longer have the time or energy for things that don't add value to your life. It's the moment you begin to see the difference between what truly matters and what's just noise. For so long, you've been conditioned to believe that being social, saying yes to everything, and maintaining connections, no matter how draining, is just part of life. But there comes a point where you wake up and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I exhausting myself for people who wouldn't do the same for me? Why am I prioritizing relationships that leave me feeling empty instead of fulfilled? And that's where everything changes. You stop living on autopilot and start making conscious choices about who and what gets your energy. When you're younger, friendships and social circles are everything. You feel this need to belong, to be included, to always be around people. But as you get older, you realize that belonging to yourself is far more important. You no longer chase friendships just for the sake of having them. You no longer force yourself into spaces where you feel unseen or unappreciated. And most importantly, you stop saying yes when you really mean no. This shift in priorities can feel unsettling at first. You might even question yourself, am I being too distant? Am I pushing people away? But the truth is, you're not avoiding others because you're bitter or because you don't care. You're avoiding them because you've realized that your time, your energy, and your peace are worth protecting. And let's be real, once you start prioritizing yourself, you see just how much time you wasted on things that didn't matter. Think about all the times you forced yourself to go to events you had no interest in, the times you entertained conversations that left you drained, the times you stuck around in friendships that felt more like obligations than genuine connections. Now that you're stepping into a new season of your life, you simply don't have space for that anymore. It's not that you don't want friendships or relationships, it's that you want the right ones. The ones that inspire you, that support you, that align with the woman you are becoming. And let's be honest, when you start filtering out the unnecessary, you realize that a lot of the people in your life were there simply out of habit, not because they were truly meant to stay. And here's the thing, some people won't understand this change. They'll call you distant, they'll say you've changed. And guess what? They're right. You have changed. Because growth requires change. Evolving requires letting go. And if someone can't respect the fact that you're choosing yourself, that says more about them than it does about you. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why you're being more selective with your time. You don't have to justify why you're no longer available for every invite, every call, every draining conversation. The people who truly value you will understand, and the ones who don't, well, they were never really in your corner to begin with. So if you find yourself avoiding certain people, certain places, certain situations, trust that instinct. It's not isolation, it's self-preservation. It's not you being distant, it's you stepping into your power. And the best part, once you start honoring your own needs, you attract relationships that actually fulfill you, not ones that just take from you. There comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that not all connections are real, not all friendships are meaningful, and not everyone in her circle genuinely supports her. This realization tends to hit hard after 25, when life starts getting real, responsibilities increase, and you become more aware of how much energy you're spending on people who might not even deserve a seat at your table. Suddenly, the same people you used to talk to every day start feeling like strangers. The group chats that once buzzed with conversations now feel exhausting. The social gatherings that once felt exciting now seem forced. It's not that you've changed in a bad way, it's that your tolerance for fake connections has disappeared. When you're younger, you don't think much about the quality of relationships. You just want to fit in, to be liked, to be part of a group. You entertain friendships even when they drain you. You keep up with conversations that add no value to your life. You say yes to plans just to avoid feeling left out. But after a certain point, you start to see things clearly. You start to notice who only calls when they need something, who only supports you when it's convenient for them, who secretly competes with you instead of cheering you on. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's why girls over 25 begin to avoid others, not because they don't care, but because they care too much about where their energy goes. They no longer have the patience for small talk that leads nowhere. They're not interested in surface level friendships that lack depth and meaning. They don't want to be around people who only show up when it benefits them, because when you reach a certain level of growth, you realize that true connections don't drain you, they fuel you. Real friendships don't make you feel exhausted, they uplift you. There's nothing worse than sitting in a room full of people and still feeling lonely. And that's exactly what happens when you force yourself to stay connected to people who don't align with you anymore. Maybe you've outgrown them. Maybe they were never meant to stay in your life long term. Maybe you're finally waking up to the fact that some people were only around because of what they could take from you, not because they truly valued you. Whatever the reason, once you feel that disconnection, it's hard to pretend everything is fine. You start choosing peace over popularity. You'd rather spend time alone than waste energy on conversations that feel fake. You'd rather have two solid friends than a room full of acquaintances who wouldn't show up for you when it really matters. And guess what? That's not a bad thing. That's a sign of growth. It means you're learning to prioritize yourself. It means you understand that not every connection is worth keeping. Of course, not everyone will understand this. Some people will call you distant. Some will say you've changed. But that's because they benefited from the version of you that was always available, always giving, always making an effort, even when they didn't deserve it. They don't like the fact that you're setting boundaries now, that you're no longer entertaining meaningless conversations, that you're choosing quality over quantity. But their discomfort is not your problem. The reality is fake connections serve no purpose in your life. They drain your energy, waste your time, and hold you back from forming meaningful relationships with people who actually see and appreciate you. So, if you're avoiding people who feel fake, who don't reciprocate your energy, who make you question your own worth, you're not doing anything wrong. You're doing exactly what you need to do to protect your peace, your growth, and your happiness. There's a point in life where you stop fearing being alone and start embracing it. For girls over 25, this shift is powerful. It's not loneliness, it's self-respect. It's the realization that solitude is not something to be afraid of, it's something to be grateful for. When you hit this phase, you no longer crave constant validation from others. You no longer need to be surrounded by people just to feel secure. Instead, you start cherishing your own company, and that changes everything. For years, you were told that being alone was a bad thing, that if you weren't always surrounded by friends, something was wrong with you, that if you weren't constantly engaging with others, you were missing out. But as you grow, you realize that some of the loneliest moments happen when you're in the wrong company. You've been in rooms full of people and still felt isolated. You've had conversations that left you feeling unseen and unheard. You've been in friendships that made you feel more alone than being by yourself ever did. That's why girls over 25 start avoiding others, not because they hate people, but because they've learned to love themselves. They don't need to fill their schedule with social events just to feel important. They don't need to keep meaningless friendships just to avoid being alone. They understand that their time and energy are valuable, and they refuse to spend them on people who drain them instead of uplifting them. There's something incredibly freeing about enjoying your own company. It means you're no longer seeking distractions from your own thoughts. It means you're comfortable enough with yourself to sit in silence, to reflect, to grow. When you reach this point, you stop looking for external validation and start finding fulfillment from within. You don't need to be at every event, in every group chat, or in every social circle. You are enough just as you are. And yes, some people will misunderstand this. They'll assume you're isolating yourself. They'll think you're being distant. But the truth is, you're just being selective. You're choosing peace over pressure, quality over quantity. You're no longer afraid of missing out because you've realized that what you were afraid of losing was never truly valuable to begin with. This kind of independence intimidates people. It makes those who rely on constant social validation uncomfortable. But their discomfort is not your burden to carry. You are not here to make others feel comfortable at the expense of your own peace. If being alone means avoiding toxic conversations, unnecessary drama, and shallow connections, then so be it. There's a difference between loneliness and solitude, and once you understand that, everything changes. Loneliness is craving company because you don't like being alone. Solitude is choosing your own presence because you love who you are becoming. That's the difference. That's the power of self-growth. That's why girls over 25 start avoiding others, not out of bitterness, not out of arrogance, but out of the pure realization that their own energy, their own peace, and their own growth are far more important than forcing themselves into spaces where they no longer belong. There comes a time in life when you stop apologizing for wanting more. You stop explaining yourself to people who never truly understood you. You stop justifying your choices to those who never had your best interests at heart. For girls over 25, this realization is life-changing. It's the moment when you recognize that you don't have to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You don't have to settle for less just because others expect you to. You don't have to keep people around just to avoid being labeled as distant or changed. The truth is, growth is uncomfortable, not for you, but for those who were benefiting from your old self. The version of you that said yes to everything, even when you wanted to say no. The version of you that tolerated half-hearted friendships, energy-draining conversations, and situations that made you feel small. The version of you that was too afraid to walk away, too afraid to put yourself first, too afraid to demand more. But now you've reached a point where you can't ignore that voice inside you anymore. The one telling you that you deserve better. The one reminding you that settling is not an option. The one pushing you to step into your full power. And that's why girls over 25 start avoiding others, not because they've become cold or selfish, but because they've finally started choosing themselves. They've started protecting their energy. They've started valuing their peace. They've started prioritizing their own happiness instead of constantly trying to meet other people's expectations. When you reach this stage, you stop making excuses for why you stayed in friendships that drained you. You stop feeling guilty for walking away from conversations that no longer serve you. You stop seeking approval from people who were never rooting for you in the first place. It's not that you don't care about others, it's that you care about yourself more now. And that shift is necessary because the moment you start choosing yourself, you start attracting the right people, the ones who respect your time, the ones who support your growth, the ones who don't get offended when you say no, but instead celebrate your ability to set boundaries, the ones who don't see your success as a threat, but as an inspiration. But let's be honest, some people won't like this change. They'll say you've become distant. They'll call you difficult. They'll accuse you of thinking you're better than everyone else. But their discomfort is not your problem. Their opinions are not your responsibility. You are not here to play small just to keep others comfortable. You are not here to live a life that meets everyone else's expectations except your own. So if you've been feeling the urge to pull away from certain people, to distance yourself from draining conversations, to walk away from situations that no longer feel right, listen to that instinct. That's not you being selfish. That's you stepping into your power. That's you refusing to apologize for wanting more. That's you making room for the life you actually deserve. And the sooner you embrace that, the freer you'll be. There comes a point in life when you realize that the people you surround yourself with have a direct impact on your energy, your mindset, and your overall happiness. Girls over 25 begin to avoid others not because they dislike people, but because they've learned to be more intentional about who they allow into their lives. It's no longer about having a large group of friends or being available to everyone all the time. It's about quality over quantity. It's about making sure that the people around you uplift, inspire, and support you rather than drain your energy and hold you back. When you're younger, friendships are often built on convenience. You make friends in school, at work, or through mutual interests, and you stay connected simply because it's easy. But as you get older, you realize that not every friendship is meant to last. Some people were only meant to be in your life for a season, not a lifetime. And when you hold on to connections that no longer align with who you are becoming, you start to feel stuck. You start to feel like you're forcing conversations, pretending to be interested in things that don't matter to you anymore, and maintaining relationships that feel more like obligations than genuine connections. This is why girls over 25 start avoiding others. They start prioritizing friendships that feel real, that feel meaningful, that bring joy rather than stress. They become more aware of the energy around them, and they choose to surround themselves with people who align with their values and their growth. They no longer have the patience for one-sided friendships where they are always giving but never receiving. They no longer tolerate relationships that drain them emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. They start to recognize that their time and energy are valuable, and they refuse to spend them on people who don't reciprocate that effort. And let's be honest, this shift isn't always easy. Some people won't understand why you're pulling away. They'll assume you've changed, that you're acting differently, that you're being distant. But the truth is, you're just setting boundaries. You're choosing to invest in relationships that matter. You're being selective about who gets access to you, and that's not a bad thing. It's a sign of growth. When you surround yourself with the right people, everything changes. You start to feel more confident, more motivated, more at peace. You feel supported instead of drained. You feel inspired instead of weighed down. The right people don't make you question your worth. They remind you of it. They don't compete with you. They celebrate you. They don't bring drama. They bring encouragement. This is why girls over 25 start avoiding others, not because they're antisocial, not because they think they're better than anyone else, but because they've realized that the company they keep matters. They would rather have a small, tight-knit group of supportive friends than a large circle of people who don't truly care about them. They would rather spend time alone than in relationships that feel forced or unfulfilling. They would rather invest in meaningful connections than waste time maintaining friendships that no longer serve them. This isn't about cutting people off for no reason. It's about making space for the right people. It's about choosing relationships that align with the life you want to build. It's about making sure that the people around you are bringing value, not negativity. It's about recognizing that you deserve friendships that lift you up, not ones that drain you. And once you understand that, you stop feeling guilty for avoiding the wrong people and start focusing on attracting the right ones. Look, life after 25 isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about choosing yourself. It's about protecting your peace, setting boundaries, and making space for the right people and opportunities. If you're pulling away from what no longer serves you, that's not isolation. That's transformation. And transformation is never comfortable. It's messy. It's lonely at times, but it's also powerful because on the other side of this phase, a stronger, wiser, and more confident version of you is waiting. So stop second guessing yourself. Stop feeling bad for outgrowing people. Keep focusing on your growth, your happiness, and your future, because when you do, the right people, the right opportunities, and the right life will start showing up. I'm rooting for you. You've got everything it takes to build the life you deserve. So go out there and own it. Good luck, and thank you for being here. Now go make it happen.